Hey you, I'm back with another episode with the 7 nomads I met at Bansko Nomad Fest in Bulgaria. In the first two, we were talking about how they got started and how fast they travel. They're all experienced and inspiring nomads, so if you haven't heard those episodes, maybe you should start there so you know a little bit more about who they are. But let me just introduce them for you quickly. Gianni Bianchini from Italy, who's been a nomad for 10 years. He's a YouTuber, podcaster, and teaches his Italian followers how to become a digital nomad.
You can't stay all the time sitting in front of a screen.
Busitil from Australia has also been nomading for about 10 years. He's in the middle of writing a PhD about digital nomadism and is a very accomplished travel writer.
It's important to have a nice routine, allocating certain parts of the day where you can actually, have fun and live.
Like Gianni and Sean, Mr. Derek Smith from Canada has been nomading for a decade and still travels a lot, doing and teaching public speaking. But now he's got a home base, or a hub as he calls it.
So every year I start off with some kind of annual goal that I am looking to pursue. This year, my goal is balance.
The same goes for Nora Dunn, also from Canada. She calls herself the professional hobo and started as a nomad long before anyone else in the panel. After 12 years of traveling without a home base, she decided to get one back in Toronto, but still travels most of the year.
Work-life balance has been a perpetual moving target for me over the years.
Jason Robinson from Ohio calls his project the Nomad Experiment. He's a newer nomad that got a rocky start to his nomad life. He was ready to go nomading when the pandemic broke out, and when it was lifted, he was diagnosed with diabetes.
I like to work in big chunks, so 2 hours at a time, turn on the Do Not Disturb and really focus on things. It's harder whenever there are more options.
Ranika Koneru from Texas has been a nomad for almost 3 years and runs a company called Cloud Connections, where she brings nomads to festivals around the world.
I have recently quit my 9-to-5 job within the tech world, and I have decided to pursue the solopreneur, entrepreneur lifestyle to the fullest.
And finally, Chris Serra from England, who's been a nomad for around 6 years and travels with his girlfriend. Chris runs a newsletter called remotebase.co, where he's helping other nomads find cheap accommodations.
The work-life balance thing is something that you learn first, and then after that you just do the work.
And the 8th nomad is me. I'm really like the 5th Beatle. My name is Palabo, and I've been a nomad for 7 years at this point. Welcome to the Radio Vagabond 7 Nomads Part 3. Today we're talking work-life balance.
This is the Radio Vagabond.
More about that in a few seconds, but first let me quickly give a shout out to a great tool for finding the best prices on a place to stay. It's called hotels25.com, and it searches booking.com, hotels.com, Expedia, Agoda, Kayak, but also a bunch that you probably never heard of. Get a Room, OpenTable, Trip.com, and so many more. If you like using one of these, let's say booking.com, don't worry, you're still doing that. The technology of Hotels25 cuts through availability and prices from all the top travel sites from around the world in one simple search, and lets you know where to find the best price. And that might be Booking.com. I've saved a ton where the exact same room is cheaper on a website that I wouldn't normally use. Hotels25.com is best price guaranteed.
And now, let's get back to the show.
I can't count how many times people have thought that I just pulled the plug, that I'm not working and just on one long vacation. And it's the picture many people have of a digital nomad, that we're just sitting on the beach or by the side of a pool with a laptop and a pina colada. In fact, that's the typical picture that'll show up if you Google digital nomad. Yeah, today it's all about work-life balance. And let's start with Derek.
Wow, you really actually are speaking my language. So every year I start off with some kind of annual goal that I am looking to pursue. This year, my goal is balance. So I'm happy you brought that up. So I actually am in the process of working through that right now because I have had many years over my digital nomad career where I have overwhelmed myself with just focusing too much on work and not enough on the good things in life. So this year I have found myself turning my computer off and turning it on and turning it off at a specific time each day. And I now exclusively don't work on weekends when I used to do that. So Saturdays and Sundays I'm off. I'm like a teacher, you know? And so I find that this year it's all new to me, but I feel like I'm finding my balance by just having some boundaries that I otherwise didn't have before because between you and I genuinely love my work and I kind of associated loving my work with, well, I might as well do that all the time. It's like, no, that's sometimes you just go spend some time with a loved one, you know, like just do that and go breathe in some fresh air and, you know, and contrary to what you may see in these digital nomad brochures, we're not all sitting on a beach breathing in fresh air on our laptops.
For the listeners, please try to Google Digital Nomad and then go to the picture section. The first 20 pages will be pictures of a computer by the beach.
Don't even get me started on trying. If you try to get sand out of a keyboard, I mean,
I wouldn't take my Mac there.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not going to do that. Yeah. So yeah, for me, it's nice to have a little bit more. I'm working on it. Just so you know, I'm still working on it, but I am flexing more of a muscle of being able to close that laptop down and getting outdoors and just finding that balance.
But it's funny, Derek, that you mentioned that about taking the weekend off because you're not the first here at this event with so many nomads that say that they don't work on weekends. I do, but then sometimes I would take a Monday or a Wednesday off and not work there. I tend to think when it comes to the weekend, okay, my clients, they're not going to answer any emails, so I am getting more and more aware of when it's the weekend, but that's just because I have people on the other end that leave me alone so I can actually get some work done.
Well, I'm kind of hopeful that not all my clients hear this because I don't want them to know my full schedule. But when I say weekends, I actually found that what I do
Friday to Monday.
Yeah, well, no, in this case, I do Sunday, Monday is my weekend. So that way on Saturdays, I don't know about you, but if you ever work on a Saturday, I feel like the rest of the world is out there having a good time, enjoying their time off. And I'm working on Saturdays, and then Sunday is my first day off of the week, and then Monday, while you fools are all back at work, I am still kicking back on my Sunday, which is a Monday, you know, so it works well for me.
Now I'm having an academy in Italian. Basically, there are video lessons, and which basically I help people to become a digital nomad. I put all my experience in 85 video lessons, and almost 10 hours of course. And I have also a membership, a community with membership. So now it's my latest project. I've been doing this for the last year, and so I'm focusing on this.
Gianni explains how he's able to balance his work time with his playtime.
One thing I do is just I try to have different way to live my life. Okay, so when it's about work, when it's about travel, when it's about time to dedicate to myself, you know, this is in a macro content, but in a daily life, I usually try to dedicate more time to myself, and this is very important because I've seen many nomads that they work more than they were working before in office, and I was doing that before. I was doing overtime, and it was not good because when you work 9-10 hours, especially in front of a screen, it can be very stressful. I usually say I'm in travel mode and in working mode. So I might travel a couple of months to India, all around, and maybe my business is more in automatic mode. I do minimal stuff. Maybe I schedule content, and then I have the working mode that I really stay 2-3 months in one place, and I work on what I have to do.
Travel is possible at any age. Your sense of adventure is just over the horizon. So, reach out and grab it. This is the Radio Vagabond.
The 4-Hour Work Week. It's a book by Tim Ferriss that encourages readers to break free from the traditional 9-to-5 work routine and embrace a more flexible and fulfilling lifestyle. The book's core message is around the concept of lifestyle design, where we create a life that's more focused on freedom, time, and experiences over the normal life of working tirelessly until you retire. In the book, Ferriss talks about remote work and creating online businesses that allow location independence and give strategies for achieving this life through outsourcing, automation, and focusing on tasks that gives the most significant results. Also, it's about spending less money so you don't have to make as much. This can be done by living in places where cost of living is lower than it might be if you're living in a big house or an expensive apartment in the Western world. So for us digital nomads, this book has become a bit of a Bible because it aligns with the ideas of living and working on one's own terms while exploring the world. It gives practical advice on optimization, productivity, and achieving a work-life balance that makes it possible to travel and explore the world. The 4-Hour Work Week has resonated with those seeking a more liberated and adventurous lifestyle, making it a cornerstone for many aspiring and experienced digital nomads. But as we heard, Gianni has noticed that some nomads, including himself in the beginning, worked even more than they did before they became digital nomads. Here's Sean from Australia.
When people talk about work-life balance, I think what they're really talking about is working less and living more. I think the ultimate...
we only work 4 hours a week.
Yeah,
yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you, Tim.
Yes, Tim Ferriss. I guess it's different as well. Like I've always been like a freelancer. I've never really had set hours that I need to put in every day.
No.
So for me, I don't. Yeah, it's easier for me, I guess, to have a work-life balance because I'm able to be in control of it more.
Sean, you're a writer, and you're working on your PhD, but that doesn't give you an income. Do you also still produce content for you mentioned the travel book from Budapest, but do you still, is that how you get your income now? Or are you just rich?
No, I wish. I wish. I have a stipend scholarship from the University of Melbourne to cover some of my living expenses,
right.
And I got a fieldwork grant to cover some of my travel expenses whilst doing this research overseas. Sometimes I get money from my travel writing stuff. So I'm doing something with Lonely Planet at the moment, and they give you like a fee for your work. So a fee that will cover your research expenses, and then a fee to actually cover the content. And I actually have also a couple of online e-commerce stores where I sell stuff like T-shirts and bags and stuff like that, which only brings in a relatively small amount of money, but it's passive income. And it's a great feeling to wake up in the morning and to see that you made money
while sleeping. Yeah.
That is cool. Even if it's a minimal amount, that's cool. And, it'd be great to double what I'm earning in my passive income. But most of my time spent researching. But yeah, to answer your question, my sources of income are my scholarship, my travel writing fees, and a tiny bit of passive income from my e-commerce stores.
And of course, the huge fee for being on the Radio Vagabond, of course.
Of course. Yeah. We'll talk about that later.
For Jason, the whole work-life balance is a challenge.
This is a huge struggle for me. I like to work in big chunks, so 2 hours at a time, turn on the Do Not Disturb and really focus on things. It's harder whenever there are more options. It is much easier to maybe go into an office for 9 hours and you have to be there and you can hunker down. But here, for instance, we're having this interview at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, and normally this is my most productive working hours. Well, I wanted to have this interview, so I said, okay, how am I going to adjust this day to where I can still get the work done, but do these FOMO things that I want to include? So it is very difficult. You have to find accommodations that work for you. You have to find co-working spaces or all of those things that are conducive to getting the work done. And at the end of the day, we are trying to live this lifestyle so that we can alleviate some of the stresses of what we maybe used to have and learn more and grow more. But if you're stressed out by money, or you're stressed out by your schedule, or you're stressed out by the fact that you just can't get all of the things done to keep this lifestyle going, then it starts to kind of work against itself. So it's a very difficult balance for me, and I think looking around, it is a tough balance for a lot of nomads.
Yeah. But you do go to co-work spaces, or do you sit in your Airbnb?
I do both. I'm a bit introverted, so I do like to work on my own, and I do need that focus time, but then I also know that I need some social interaction. So having a balance or the availability of a co-working space or living in a co-living space so that I have access to good desks and ergonomic chairs and places where I can do my work, but there's also a social environment. All of those things are part of my balance.
Let's turn to Nora Dunn. As you might remember, she was a financial planner before she became a nomad. Now her main focus is her YouTube channel.
It is, although it is only the main focus because it's what I'm actively building right now. My website is still my main online home, which is theprofessionalhobo.com.
Theprofessionalhobo.com, link in show notes.
But I've had my YouTube channel for ages and ages, since 2007 actually, but please don't go looking for the old content because it's painful.
Including the one that we recorded. That's very painful because I forgot to record.
That was so good. And in fact, actually, that was the second last attempt at really breathing new life into my YouTube channel in a way that I thought might establish it as a reasonable source of income. Because during the pandemic, when travel stopped, so too did traffic to my website, which I thought I had a diversified career. I had many streams of income, but they were all 100% tied to traffic. So when the traffic died because of circumstance during the pandemic, and then the traffic died even more because of a Google algorithm update, these two factors, both of which were out of my control, made me realize that I had a pretty crappy business. So I wanted to develop some other streams of income that would give me an actual diversified online business. So I looked to YouTube, and I created this series that you are referring to, which was the Remote Work and Travel Show, where I interviewed ordinary people who have extraordinary travel lifestyles and remote careers. And you were one of those ordinary folk that I interviewed.
Ordinary?
Yeah, well, but extraordinary as well, right? And I loved it because it connected me with some amazing people, and it gave me, in the throes of the pandemic, I was able to have these amazing conversations with people who, and get to know people through this medium of the interview. And it was amazing for me in that way, socially and professionally.
That's why I'm doing this right now.
Right, exactly. See, we're connected forever because of this. Yeah. But it was not strategically what would move the needle for me with YouTube.
Not even my video. What?
As riveting as it was, strangely, we did not go viral.
So now you're sharing a lot of tips.
So now my show is the new show is Travel Smart in Style, where I share 10 to 15 minute videos that are just full of travel tips, fairly general travel tips, as well as some information about the lifestyle, the digital nomad lifestyle, and then I also review travel gear and remote work tools.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember you did an episode about finding flights the right way, and I watched that. And ever since then, I've stopped searching Skyscanner in incognito mode because Nora told me that it's not necessary. So I always thought, you have to. I did that all the time, but nope.
Apparently not. Yeah, and
I even use my VPN sometimes to search, and then I listen to you.
Aww. Well, the VPN sometimes still works if you want to set it to a different country, but that's a whole strategy unto itself. I don't know about you, but I mean, as much as I can create content about how to find flights and how to save money on flights and flight booking mistakes and all this sort of stuff, I detest the actual process of booking flights. Ugh. Given our lifestyle, the challenge is we have too much flexibility, right? We have flexibility of dates. We have flexibility of points of origin and destinations. Yeah. There's too many options. I mean, it is practically a job unto itself.
The name's Bond. Radio Vagabond.
So, in your travels, how did you manage to do the work-life balance?
Work-life balance has been a perpetual moving target for me over the years. Part of the problem being because I was living very locally wherever I was, and I was perpetually misunderstood, I didn't really understand the importance myself of things like ergonomics and boundaries and all of that. Also, because I was bootstrapping this remote career from the ground up, not really knowing what I was doing the entire way, and I was doing that concurrent to trying to figure out the travel lifestyle. It also meant that I perpetually felt like I was sacrificing a travel experience to get work done, or I was sacrificing some element of work to have a travel experience. So I struggled for years and years to get this balance. And then also, if I found myself in the company of people who did not share this remote work lifestyle, there was always this tug of war, this dissonance between the people who were in my life and how they were going about their days and me. So this is another reason why this year for me, I'm excited to experiment with things like co-living and co-working, because everybody has the same lifestyle. I'll demonstrate this by way of a quick story. When I was planning the trip with Matt Bowles, we circumnavigated the United States by train. And when we were planning this trip, we were planning a pretty epic 5,000 miles of train travel around the United States. And at some stage of the game, I said to Matt, this is the first time I'd ever traveled with a digital nomad, and I said, look, just so you know, I have to work along the way. I can't take all of this time off work. And I was prepared for this to be a really big, serious conversation about how we were going to make this trip happen, because this has been every conversation I'd ever had with anybody I'd ever traveled with. And he looked at me and he said, Nora, I'm a digital nomad too. I get it. We have to work along the way. And we had this effortless pace of travel that we worked into. After a train ride, we'd get off, we'd spend a few extra days at a destination, so we had enough time to explore, plus get our work done before we went on the next leg. And that the ease with which we were able to work together as well as travel and live together made me realize there was another way entirely to have this lifestyle.
Here's Chris from England, the guy that travels with his girlfriend.
Oh, this is a good question. How do we manage work-life balance? I think it's different for both of us. And to be honest, it changed for me over the years, because when I was working a full-time role, like I had a team, I had, there would be client requests. It was interesting. And that was different to now, because now working for myself, it's like a completely different mentality. I tend to work when I have energy. If I have meetings, then you have to have energy for the meetings, but outside of that, I can really flex, and I don't really, like, time zones isn't as big an issue for me anymore, whereas for my girlfriend, getting the work in so that it matches other people's time zones and stuff like this is important. And then the balance with life is just I think that it's happened quite naturally for us, and maybe this is like one of the bad things about when you have been a nomad for 6 years. You forget how you do some of this stuff. Like when you learn to drive, the first thing you do is they teach you, like, maybe not if you're in the US or where automatic is used, but you learn the mechanics of the car. You learn how to shift the gears and which pedals do what. Yeah. And that's not really driving, that's just like the operational side of it. And then after that, that's when you learn how to read the road and anticipate other traffic movements and stuff. Yeah. And I feel like when, like, the work-life balance thing is something that maybe we do on, like, when you learn to drive, eventually you do all of the mechanical gear stuff on autopilot. You don't think about that. You're only focused on the driving. You're looking at the road. And I think with nomad life, you learn first how to have the balance, and maybe you learn some rules for balance, and then after that you just do the work. And the balance comes seemingly as natural.
Do you take weekends off?
I probably do a little bit of work on one of the weekend days, but most of the time in the week there'll be 1 or 2 days where I don't work a full day, so that's kind of my balance. Yeah, like for my energy levels. And my girlfriend tends to take the weekends as weekends.
In my case, my work is, well, I have a production company doing audio, but I'm technically a freelancer.
Yeah.
And I'm always available.
Yeah.
Obviously, with different time zones. If I need to have a meeting at 3 a.m. in the morning because I'm in New Zealand, I'll have a meeting at 3 a.m. And then it dawned on me that, hey, I'm allowed to take a vacation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in 7 years, I never put an auto reply saying, hey, I'm taking a vacation here. So I'm never on vacation, but then I'm always on vacation. So it's a kind of a weird mixture of those.
Yeah, like I don't feel like I ever need to take, if you wanted to look at the, in quotes, the traditional lifestyle, like people take a 2-week vacation. I never really feel, I need to take 2 weeks to just like do nothing and lie on a beach. Like I never need this recuperation because I get small rest infrequently as opposed to like one big block of rest. So it sounds like that's very similar for you, right?
Yeah.
Like you never needed to do that.
Yeah.
Travel is the only thing you can buy that makes you richer. Unless you buy too much gelato, then you're just poor again. The radio vagabond. Gotta keep moving.
Yeah, and also the whole thing about being in different time zones can also be both a challenge and also a blessing. Most of my clients are in Europe, so when I was in New Zealand, it was not until late afternoon that they started to wake up, and so I had the whole day to myself, and then they slowly started doing something. Obviously, I needed to be there at nighttime as well, where I might be sitting at a stand-up club or something.
Yeah, and actually, I'm happy you brought that up because I would love to have more activities and clients in Australia, New Zealand, and that side of the world. But the truth of the matter is, living in Portugal, I had to define a time that worked for all forms of time zones that fit my clients. And I actually have found that most of my events take place at 5 p.m. on Portugal time, so that way I can capture the New York side of things, which is around noon hour, we'll say, give or take, whatever time of year. Plus, it brings me all the way to India into their evenings and early nights.
Right.
So that seems to be the sweet spot for a lot of my events, is figuring out that. And one day, I'm hopeful my friends and colleagues and clients out in New Zealand will welcome me to them. But right now, I can't capture that time zone. I can't even get there,
I usually dedicate a couple of hours to myself in the morning and a couple of hours in the afternoon. And that means a lot of activities that can be meditation, journaling, running, going to the gym, dancing. Also, sometimes I dance in my room just to stress out a little bit, and cooking when I can cook, when I have place to cook. So yeah, I try to dedicate time to myself. You can't stay all the time sitting in front of a screen. And it's not good for you, also for your health, because we have to stand up. We have to stand up, do things.
So I think it's important to have a nice routine. Signing up to a co-working space or allocating certain times of the day where you get your work done, and then allocating certain parts of the day where you can actually, have fun and live and work out and exercise and socialize. For me, I guess the way that I kind of work is I find it hard to have consistent work hours through the week. I'm more of an extreme kind of person where I may work 10-hour, 12-hour days for a couple of weeks and then have a few days completely off.
Yeah.
I find it hard to balance that, to have a certain number of hours that I work per day and to not work certain hours a day.
Sometimes I have to look at my phone to see which day of the week it is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, every day is kind of the same.
Yeah.
For me, there are no weekends. As a freelancer as well, there are no weekends.
So there are no weekends for Shaun. But as we heard, there are for Derek, even though it's Sunday and Monday, and for a few of the other nomads I spoke to here in Bansko. I'm more like Shaun. As you know, I'm also a freelancer. I produce podcasts, radio, voiceovers, and sound design for clients. My biggest client is the Lego Group, and the latest project I did was about the amazing Spider-Man in collaboration with Marvel. Go to lego.com/art
and click on The Amazing Spider-Man if you want to hear it. And I'm able to work with Lego wherever I am in the world. We started this project in October 22, and I did the last bit when I was in Bansko. Parts of a project like that is just a few hours a day, maybe even sometimes a few hours a week, and then I did most of the work when I was in Christchurch, New Zealand. I book the guest, I write the questions, and I make sure that everything is recorded, in this case with people in California, New York, Japan, and Denmark, and me in New Zealand. And then I spent long days editing, doing sound design, and making the whole thing sound good. So parts of my year I'm able to move around, travel fast, and go exploring, and in other parts I hunker down and work long hours. Another one of my clients is the TBEX conference for travel content creators. Here I go to the conferences and co-host the podcast where we do interviews with speakers and other smart people at the event. In month after each conference, it's my job to edit, produce, and publish these episodes. This podcast is called Travel Matters, and you should give it a listen. I have other clients too, and then I do, this podcast. It's a lot of work too, but mostly it's a passion project that doesn't make me a fortune. It's been growing a lot, and I hope that it'll grow even more in the future so it can be a bigger part of my income. That way I can focus on bringing you even more great content. I have so much recorded around the world, but it takes a lot of time to edit and produce. The only thing that brings me a little bit is with Hotels25.com. That's why I keep mentioning that it's a great tool that'll help you get the guaranteed best price on a place to stay. It does this by searching Booking.com, Hotels.com, Agoda, Expedia, Kayak, and many other sites in one search and shows you where the price is best. And then when you use it and book a place, I get a small commission without it adding anything to your price. So far, that's the only way I make money on this podcast. It's not a lot, but everything helps. So I hope you feel like giving it a try. Not only to support the show, but mostly to support yourself by saving money. Literally, it's a win-win for both of us, and a great tool. And speaking of tools, that's going to be the topic for the next episode with the 7 Nomads, where I talk to them about what their favorite tools and resources are in their lives as digital nomads. That's next week on the Radio Vagabond. My name's Palabo, and I gotta keep moving. See ya.
Produced by RadioGuru.co.uk.